Level 1, the runner. You're 22. You don't think of yourself as a criminal. You think of yourself as someone doing a guy named Ozzy a favor for cash. Ozzy owns 2 car washes and a phone that never stops buzzing. He explains the job over gas station coffee like he's describing a paper route. You take an envelope. You drive to a bank. You deposit part of it, never over 9,000. Then drive to another bank and another. Different branch, different day, different face behind the counter every time. He doesn't explain why 9,000. You look it up that night. 10,000 triggers a federal report. Below that, you're invisible, a guy making a deposit. It happens 100,000 times a day in this country, and nobody blinks. $200 a day, cash, 3 days a week. Ozzy's only rule, stay boring. Don't buy anything flashy, don't change your routine, keep working your real job at the hardware store, so on paper you're exactly who you look like. The first month, nothing happens. You visit 11 branches across 2 counties, you get good at small talk with tellers, your heart rate stops spiking the second the cash leaves your hand. Month 3, a teller asks if you're saving up for something. You say a car. She smiles. You sit in the parking lot for 2 full minutes after, hands on the wheel, not moving, for no reason you can name. Month 7, a guy named Rico who runs the same route for Ozzy gets picked up. Not for the deposits, for talking. He told his girlfriend too much. She told a friend, the friend told the wrong person. Ozzy drops him like he never existed. No lawyer, no call, nothing. Ozzy calls you that same afternoon. Take 2 weeks off. Go visit your cousin somewhere with cameras on you that aren't his problem to explain. You go. You think about Rico the entire time. You think about the shoebox under your bed with $6,000 in it. You come back anyway because 6,000 is real and federal conspiracy is still just a phrase you read on a website once. That's level 1. The danger wears the most ordinary face you've ever seen. And you stay in it far longer than you should because ordinary doesn't feel like something you need to survive. Level 2, the front 3 years pass. Ozzy trusts you enough now to show you the real machine. He unrolls a diagram on a car wash office desk. Not an org chart for a company, a map of money. He explains the problem with running cash by hand. Patterns. Banks flag patterns now. 15 small deposits from one face is a pattern. The fix isn't hiding better. The fix is having a real business that's supposed to handle that much cash. You start managing 2 of his fronts. A laundromat where nobody pays by card, a food stall at the night market where cash is just how business works. Both real, both legitimate on the surface. Real customers, real product, real employees who have no idea what else moves through the register. You learn the actual skill here isn't crime, it's accounting. You learn what a normal cash business looks like on paper, and you learn to make your numbers match that shape exactly. Not too clean, not too messy. Average in a way real businesses rarely are on purpose. You hire 2 accountants. One who has no idea what she's really looking at. One, a man named Ray, who knows exactly what he's looking at and communicates only through a lawyer, so his name never touches the money directly. Neither does yours. Your girlfriend Naomi thinks you're a small business owner working long hours. You let her believe it because it's close enough to true that maintaining the lie costs you almost nothing. The food stall becomes the part you actually love. You hire a cook, Marisol, whose birria draws a line 40 people deep on weekends. That business would turn a profit with or without you laundering $1 through it. You think about that more than you'd like to admit, what it would mean to just run the stall and walk away from everything else. You don't walk away. Ozzy promotes you instead. Now you're managing cash for 2 operations you've never met, arriving in duffel bags at a storage unit every Tuesday like clockwork. Year 2 at this level, the IRS sends a letter. Not an audit, just a question about 1/4's numbers. Ray handles it through the lawyer. 6 weeks later, the inquiry closes. You lose 4 pounds during those 6 weeks and gain them back the day the letter clears. You start to understand something that should scare you more than it does. The crime was never the hard part. Anyone can make dirty money. Making it disappear, that's the actual skill. You are the machine everyone else depends on, and being needed like that is its own kind of addictive. Level 3, The architect, you're 29 when Ozzy vanishes. Not arrested, not dead, just gone. The way careful people leave when they feel the temperature changing. He calls from a number you don't recognize, tells you the whole operation is yours now, and hangs up before you can ask a single question. 2 weeks later, someone hears he's in Portugal. You never confirm it. You don't need to. He left you everything because you're the only person who ever understood the whole shape of it. Every business, every account, every relationship that makes the money disappear, you spend a month terrified. Then you spend a month building. The laundromat and the food stall were simple instruments. What you build next is an orchestra, a real estate holding company flipping distressed properties, paid renovation crews in cash, sold at full market value, dirty money walks in as labor cost, clean capital gains walk out. A small gallery in a gentrifying part of the city where art prices are subjective enough that nobody questions a $40,000 cash sale. A consulting firm billing for advice that ranges from real to entirely theoretical. Each business is legal. Each one also breathes cash in whatever amount the week requires. You hire 3 specialists who understand this world better than you do. One of them, a former banking regulator who quietly left government work and won't say why. His rate is enormous. His value is bigger than his rate. Referrals start arriving from cities you've never worked in, from people whose business you've learned never to ask about. You're not a criminal anymore in your own head. You're a specialist, an accountant for industries that don't file taxes. Naomi finds a deposit slip in your jacket. The number is too large for a laundromat owner. She asks you about it once carefully, like she's rehearsed the question. You give her the real estate answer. Every word of it is technically true. She knows it's incomplete. She accepts it anyway, because the life built around the lie is comfortable, and some questions are easier left half-answered. 3 counties away, an analyst at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit is running transaction data through a new pattern recognition model. Your holding company shows up twice in flagged networks. It looks clean because on paper it is clean, but pattern software doesn't care about paper. It cares about shape, and your shape has started repeating. You don't know this yet. You find out years later the way you find out most things about your own life. After the fact, in a file someone else built. You keep expanding anyway. International accounts now. A shell in a jurisdiction that asks no questions about ownership. Funds moving in ways that are legal where they start, legal where they land, and completely unaccountable in the space between. You've built a philosophy that lets you sleep. You've never hurt anyone directly. You've never touched a drug or a gun. You just move numbers. The numbers don't bleed. By now you have more money than you could spend in 3 lifetimes. You could stop, legitimize what's clean, walk from what isn't, disappear into an ordinary life with Naomi and never look back. You don't stop, because somewhere along the way, the architecture itself became the point. You're the best at this you've ever seen anyone be, and stopping would mean admitting the only thing you're truly excellent at was never something you were allowed to be proud of. Level 4, the ghost. You're 36. Your name isn't attached to anything that matters anymore. Nominees, attorneys, and registered agents hold every account, every property, every business. On paper, you're a man with a thin financial history and nothing worth a second look. In reality, you route between $4 and $7 million a month across an operation spanning 3 countries. You live out of hotel lobbies now. Geneva, Panama City, Dubai. Cities that mean something specific to people who move money for a living. You meet contacts in restaurant bars, and once, memorably, on a yacht belonging to a man whose real name you never learn. You always order the good wine. You always listen more than you talk. Naomi leaves the way most important things end, not with a scene, but slowly, over 2 years of half conversations, until the picture she'd been assembling became too heavy to keep pretending she hadn't seen it. She packs 3 suitcases on a Tuesday and doesn't threaten you on the way out. She just understood, finally, completely, and chose herself. You have a lawyer in Zurich now, a banker in Luxembourg, a fixer in Miami for problems that need a body in the room instead of a phone call. None of them are friends, all of them are necessary. The FBI investigation that started as a pattern on a screen has a name now, a task force, a wall with a diagram pinned to it, and a question mark exactly where your name will eventually go. You're in Dubai when your Miami fixer calls on a phone you'll destroy in 6 weeks. One of your client networks has been compromised. Federal arrests, cooperation likely. You built exactly for this moment, firewalls, cutouts, distance. The compromised client doesn't know your name. They know a contact who knows a contact. You spend the next 3 days executing a shutdown sequence you designed 2 years ago. Accounts close, one shell dissolves, a dormant company in a different jurisdiction wakes up to take its place. By the time anyone's cooperation could theoretically reach toward you, the thing they'd be reaching for no longer exists in any form they'd recognize. Weeks later in Singapore, your Zurich lawyer sends 4 words through an encrypted channel. The weather is changing. You already built the protocol for this back at level 3. You trigger it. Over 4 months, you dismantle the entire architecture, not fast, not obviously, the way a surgeon closes an incision one careful layer at a time. Clients get quietly referred elsewhere. Associates are paid their last percentage and given no way to reach you again. What's left when the dust settles is what was always meant to be the exit, the fully legitimate real estate holdings. The restaurant Marisol now half owns and runs better than you ever could. An investment portfolio built from a decade of properly cleaned, properly taxed, entirely legal capital. You buy a small house on a coastline in a country with strong financial privacy laws, not to hide, to finally stop. You sit on the terrace some mornings and realize you haven't felt this specific kind of quiet since you were 22, before any of this had a name. It lasts 11 months. Level 5. The Reckoning. The call comes on a Thursday. Your Zurich lawyer, not through the secure channel this time, just his real voice because the era of operational security is over, and what's left is only the human part of the conversation. Federal indictment. Conspiracy to launder money. Conspiracy to engage in transactions involving criminally derived property. RICO counts. Tying your operation to 2 client networks that have now fully cooperated. The architecture held for 11 years. What didn't hold was one associate, someone who knew less than he thought but more than enough, trading everything he had on you for a lighter sentence on himself. You built to survive exactly this. You reduced the blast radius as far as any human structure can. You just never built a version of it that survives human nature completely, and some part of you always knew that. You return voluntarily, not out of honor, because you're 41, and voluntary return is the only move left that keeps any control over how the next chapter starts. Plea negotiations take 7 months. You don't give up the clients, not loyalty, math. The government can only put you in prison. The clients can do considerably worse than that. 14 years. You'll serve just under 12. Almost everything forfeits except what your lawyers fought hardest to protect. Enough to survive on. Nowhere near enough to rebuild what you had. The restaurant survives. Marisol kept it running through the entire proceeding, and by the time you're sentenced, she owns most of it outright. Your lawyer made sure of that specifically in a way you couldn't fully explain wanting at the time. Prison at 41 is not what you'd have handled at 24. Your body notices every indignity now. A mind trained for 2 decades to find patterns in chaos has nothing left to find patterns in, and it turns on itself in the silence. You don't sleep well the first year. You start teaching a basic financial literacy class to other inmates in year 2. Half rehabilitation, half the only way to keep your mind from going soft. It's popular. The warden approves it because it looks good on paper. You're not sure yet if it's more than that. You have a daughter. She was 9 when they sentenced you. Her mother raised her entirely and, well, without you. She writes 3 short letters over 4 years, careful, testing whether you're worth knowing at all. You write back each time with more care than you've given anything in a decade. Her 4th letter arrives in year 6. Longer this time. She's 15 now. She doesn't ask emotionally. She asks like she's trying to understand a system that failed. Why? You spend 2 weeks on the answer. You explain the levels, how each one felt like a promotion, like real skill applied to a real problem, and what got quietly lost at every step between what you told yourself and what was actually true. She writes back 3 weeks later, I'm studying economics. I want to understand how systems fail. Year 11 she visits. 20 years old now, your eyes, her mother's composure, halfway through a degree in financial regulation. The two of you sit across a table built for exactly this kind of conversation, and she asks questions like someone who's been preparing for years. You answer everything, some of it out loud for the very first time, and it sounds different leaving your mouth than it ever did as a private thought. She comes back the next month, and the month after that. You're released at 53. You can't work anywhere near finance, which is everything you know how to do. You can't associate with anyone you actually know. Your parole officer is younger than your daughter and entirely unimpressed by you, which you find strangely comforting. Your daughter visits your small apartment 6 months after release, brings food, sits at your table, and eats with you like it's nothing extraordinary. She asks if you miss it, the work. You think about Dubai, Geneva hotel bars, the elegance of a system that moved millions of dollars invisibly across a planet that mostly wasn't watching. You tell her the thinking, yes, the architecture of it, not the crime, the craft. You tell her the rest too, what it cost, the years, the distance it put between you and everyone who mattered before the numbers did. That part, you don't miss at all. She nods, files it away the exact careful way she files everything. When she leaves, she hugs you. The first time she's ever done that. Brief, still deciding what it costs her to let herself do it. You understand that calculation completely. You spent an entire career running versions of exactly that math. The apartment goes quiet after she leaves. You make coffee you don't finish. Somewhere out in the city right now, a 22-year-old is depositing $8,900 into a bank account and telling himself the risk belongs to somebody else. You don't go looking for him. Some things a person has to run all the way to the end of before they understand exactly where the end was. You already know where it was. You're sitting in it.